to the Money RX for CRNAs podcast, where you go behind the scenes with host Brett Fellows, CFP, as he explores the unique opportunities and challenges facing certified registered nurse anesthetist along the path to financial independence. In each episode, Brett shares expert insights and actionable advice, equipping you with the tools you need to take control of your financial destiny and retire on your terms. And now, here's your host, Brett Fellows.
Welcome to Money RX for CRNAs. Today, we are joined by the remarkable Amanda K. Amanda's journey from the foundational role of nursing to embracing the autonomy of being an independent CRNA is inspiring. With a rich background that spans orthopedic trauma to hospice care, Amanda has honed her skills across a variety of medical fields. Today, she masterfully balances contract work through her S-Corp with independent engagements, navigating the complexities of freelance work with confidence. In this episode, Amanda opens up about the critical role of financial planning and strategic thinking in her transition to full-time freelance work. She dives deep into the essentials of understanding market rates, negotiating contracts effectively, and managing the often irregular income streams that come with being an independent practitioner. Beyond the logistics, Amanda shares her approach to scheduling, striving to strike that delicate balance between fulfilling work commitments and cherishing family time. She targets working 13 to 15 shifts per month, a strategy that allows her to maintain flexibility and prioritize her lifestyle. Amanda also extends her expertise beyond her clinical work into the realm of coaching and consulting, where she guides aspiring CRNAs through their careers. She emphasizes the importance of mindset and leadership in healthcare, underscoring how personal growth through avenues like coaching and parenting has reshaped her approach to stress and life balance. Lastly, you'll hear how Amanda transitioned from a perfectionist to a person who values peace and enjoyment, focusing on what truly matters in life. This discussion is packed with profound insights and practical advice for CRNAs navigating the complex waters of independent medical practice and personal growth. And with that, I hope you enjoy this episode of Money RX for CRNAs with special guest Amanda K. Amanda K. Kelly, welcome to Money RX for CRNAs.
Thank you so much. I am so honored you guys reached out to me, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we are excited to have you here. And for you, I didn't mention this to you, and for the listeners, one of the reasons why I wanted to reach out to you was actually something on your website, which we'll talk about. You mentioned, or I'll read it. It says, what if you could decrease the times of struggle, overwhelm, and uncertainty, and instead conquer your fears and master the process the whole way to become a CRNA? We have something very similar on our website, but it talks about money. Again, decrease times of struggle, overwhelm, and uncertainty, and instead conquer your fears. If you just put money on the end of it, it's the exact same thing. So that's, I thought, what a unique parallel to talk about. And so that's why we had asked and are excited to have you here today.
Awesome. I'm so excited. I'm so happy that resonated with you. I get that because yes, if you can't conquer money, if you don't know what to do with it and how to all the things, then you struggle a bit.
Yeah. If you want to talk about imposter syndrome and fear, there's no better thing to talk about than money.
Yep.
So let's get into this, Amanda. So you are an independent CRNA. You are also a mentor and coach to aspiring CRNAs and so much. And I know you have a lot going on there. And you also have your own podcasts, which we'll talk about. And oh, by the way, you also have 2 little boys. You've got your hands full for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
So you're in Illinois, you were telling me, and I'd love to hear first and foremost, you work with so many about their journey to becoming a CRNA. I'd love to hear about yours and then what ultimately led up to you deciding to go independent this past February, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Absolutely. So I always wanted to be a nurse. It was tennis player, singer, and nurse. And so nurse one, the other two were not happening. So I always wanted to be a nurse. I went to nursing school. I immediately started working in orthopedic trauma. I was always interested in trauma because I wanted to be the calm in like the middle of the worst days of people's lives. Like terrible things are going to happen, unfortunately. And I wanted to be there in those moments for people. And so I took a long route to get there. I did some ortho trauma. I did some med surg telemetry. I did some palliative care, hospice work, a little bit of everything. And then finally ended up in some level 1 trauma centers and level 2 and built my nursing career around that.
Yeah.
I was terrible with money, by the way. We'll just say that. I wish I would have known some things back then. And then I decided I wanted to advance my education. So I looked at nurse practitioner, actually got into NP school. A lot of people don't know that.
Great.
It just didn't sit right with me. And so then I started researching the CRNA tract and went to CRNA school in the New England area. It was rough, made it through, graduated, got married, bought the house, did all the things, tried to get my money situation together, of course. And so I basically started out W-2 with my first job. I took a W-2 job. I was very autonomous position. It was great. And then I met one of the CRNAs and she's, hey, I have an S Corp and I do some extra work. Why don't you try it? I was like, great. So she hooked me up with all the business type stuff of things. And I started doing like extra like 1099 work once a week, couple times a month or stuff like that. And then slowly I just began building my connections out and I decreased my W-2 and then filled in with the 1099. And so what I eventually did for a while was a mix of W-2 and 1099 work. So I had my S Corp with the 1099 and a W-2. And there's fun ways you can double dip and do stuff doing both. So it was great. I loved it. Fast forward to, depending on when you're listening to this, February of 2024, last year, we had some family issues happening. And I needed to have a more flexible schedule. And right now in 2024, the CRNA market is hot. Like it's hot right now. I think healthcare changed in the last 4 years and anesthesia providers are very much in demand. And so I needed more flexibility. I wanted to take advantage of the current market for CRNAs. And so it was a hard decision, but I eventually made the decision to drop W-2 altogether and just go completely 1099, use my S Corp and just create my own schedule. I do a lot of surgery center stuff, a little bit of hospital work. I'm able to blend those elements of travel nursing that I love, stay put in my own area since I've got 2 young kids.
That's great. That's great. And so let me pick back there a little bit. Actually, let's go more present day. So that's such a courageous decision to go off on your own. So how did you, and I'm going to selfishly weave financial planning questions in here, knowing you weren't going to get that W-2 paycheck, had you saved enough money going into it? Or if you had to, how did that aspect work? How long did it take for you to even recoup that? Or no, it was like you're saying, it was so hot, it really was seamless.
Yeah. I first had to convince my husband actually in finance. He's a CPA and a CFO. Nice. So he is like Excel spreadsheets. Everything has to balance all this craziness. And I'm just like, oh my God. So I first had to convince him. So I had to basically play the numbers game, lay it all out. This is because he feels like we're driving blind because your income does tend to fluctuate based on the amount of shifts that I pick up. So he's still nervous. We're working through that. But I essentially did the math. I just looked at the numbers. I looked at the days I wanted to work. I looked at the market and I just went very minimum. If I work only 6 hours at this much, at this rate, this is what I potentially could bring home a month. So I looked like case scenario, what's the least amount of money I'm going to make a month? Okay. And that's what I gave my husband. Sure. If I bring home this every month, are we okay? Can you budget? Can you figure things out here? And so that's where I started. It was just a lot of number crunching, a lot of back and forth. I just had a baby last year. So I actually did not work a lot last year. So that was even harder as my income took a big dip last year between maternity leave, I just was sick. And so our savings wasn't really where we wanted it to be, which made this even more scarier. But like I said, I think it was really just what's the worst case scenario? And honestly, if this doesn't work, I will go back in a W-2
Right.
or I'll do a contract or I'll do. So I made sure I hate this word because my husband says it all the time, contingency plans.
Yeah.
Do not like that word.
Uh-huh.
But I made sure I had some contingency set up. Like worst case scenario, if this doesn't go as planned, I will go back to W-2 or I'll get into a contract. So it was looking at all those different pieces and really just doing the numbers and looking at taking a hard look at where I was spending too much money at, where could I pull back at, what bills have to be paid, what do we have to pay every month. So looking at that and then back ending into it is
that's smart. Very smart. And just the medical aspect of it, was that through your husband's work or was that through you from your time as a W-2?
Yeah. So luckily he carries the health insurance benefit.
Okay, great. Yeah,
so that's nice. Yeah. So he does that. And then I had ended up, because I had so many different jobs, I had a lot of different 401k, 403bs. So what I'm doing is opening like a backdoor Roth.
Yeah.
And dumping all that money into that Roth.
Yeah.
And opening like an investment savings account. So then I've been funneling money in there. So I'm still investing, even though I don't have an employer plan. There's also, you can speak to it, the stock RRNA, that stuff. I don't have any of that yet, but I'm just doing it that way. And then as far as most W-2 jobs give you CMEs money. And so I would be losing that. And I have to maintain my DEA license and my nursing license and my APRN license, my controlled substance license. Even when you do the math, right now, what the CRNA rates are, it was okay. Like it wasn't too much of a loss to lose those few thousands of dollars. Yeah. So that was what we looked at as well, because you're not going to get all those.
Yes. And what do you refer to when you talk about your rates? What are you referencing when you say that?
Yeah. So rates would be your hourly rate. You can go based on an hourly rate. So how much you get paid an hour.
Is that your discretion? Forgive me.
Would you say? Go ahead.
Is that your discretion as to what that rate would be?
You have to go, it basically market. You have to know market. You have to know the area. So you have to be within that. I always say shoot high, but give yourself wiggle room when you're negotiating, go high. And then usually you'll end meeting up in the middle somehow. But so the market rates it's incredible. I started as a CRNA in, 2017, and the growth and the change has just been insane right now. Right. So a market hourly rate. And then from there, you negotiate 6-hour or 8-hour minimums. So even if the day finishes early or case is canceled, this is what I need to be paid. I need at least 6-hour minimum pay or 8-hour minimum pay. Yes. Or you can even just create a daily rate. This is my rate for the day. However, if we go past 8 hours, then you up it to a premium hourly rate. Yes. So that's what I do.
Yeah. And who's the middleman, for lack of a better word, in all this? How do you find the jobs? How do you decipher, have clear engagements of, I'm going to do the 6-hour or the 8-hour? How does all that work?
Yep. So it's a mix of, and I have really great neighbors who know surgeons. So a lot of my jobs have just been, I always tell everybody, networking is key.
That's ultimately what I was curious about.
It is. It's connecting, it's networking. And even if you're working at a hospital, a lot of the endoscopy docs, the plastic surgeons, they have offices and they need anesthesia at their offices. There's just so many opportunities to network. And I always say when you network, it's not what you can get from them, it's what you can give to them. What value can you bring to them? So I always keep that at the forefront. So essentially it's talking to other people they work with. Sometimes you're looking at their fee. I also call it a fee schedule. A lot of times plastic surgery, 1 hour is this much, 30 minutes. So you can create fee schedules as well. So if there's another CRNA or somebody there, I will speak to them. What are the rates? Where are we at? Go from there. Because I believe in transparency with CRNAs. I believe in sharing salaries and it's the only way we can change.
Law of abundance, I think.
Versus being all secretive. Let's our value, let's go out. There's also office managers. So sometimes you can talk to the office manager and they'll go back to the surgeon. But a lot of times I like to just speak to the surgeon myself of what are you looking for? What do you need? This is basically my rate. This is et cetera. Cause then you want to see how long are his cases? What kind of cases is he doing or he or she doing? Things like that. So I always like to go right to the surgeon if they are in that business aspect, but sometimes their the person that manages their office is their right hand. So I see between those two is the way to go.
Yeah. And so it really is business to business, like meaning your business right to the surgeon, their business. There's no real middle person. It's your network. It's who's making those agreements and making those, again, the financial planning side. So like who is it, husband? Who decide, how do you follow up? Oh, I got paid correctly. How do you reconcile all that?
Yeah, that's where I'm because I just started doing this February because before I wasn't doing enough 1099 that I could just keep track.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know. I've debated on getting QuickBooks. I have not gotten anything yet, but right now I have Evernote.
Yeah.
I just have it in a thing and I have May, January, February, March, April. And I just have basically where I'm working at. I keep track of the mileage. So I just at tax time, it's easy. This is the mileage from my house to that place. So I have the name of the place, the mileage, and then I just keep the date, the hours worked, that. And then I do have to create my own invoices. Like I got QuickBooks or something. But I go to canva.com. I make my own invoices. They have a template for it. I forward those on. But I have to say I need to figure out a better system for that because that's getting a little dicey. And I get paid like your W-2 every 2 weeks, paycheck goes in.
You do. Okay.
Don't gotta think about it. You double check it. Now it's like I get paid on the 5th and then the 10th and then the end of the month. And then I have to submit it the old school way, paper. So that's the part where you really need to have solid bookkeeping. And I need to figure that out a little better system.
So as you've been managing this, again, it's only been for a couple months. What's the greatest thing what's been the hardest part about managing all of that? Is it when you work your schedule, picking up too much, not enough? What's the biggest hurdle?
That's a good question. I would say putting together my own schedule is like a gift, but it's also on me, right? Like I just actually today, like I'm like, I really need to put June together because if I don't put a schedule together, I don't work. I don't have money. My husband will have a mental breakdown. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's the one thing I think is just sitting down and putting together my schedule and what are our travel plans? Like I like to, my whole goal right now is like lifestyle first, kids first, mom first. So I try to look at my month. What do I want to do? Who do I want to connect with this month? What friends do I want to see? What do I want to do? So I try to put that in and then put my shifts in. And I did talk to a finance person and they said 13 to 15 shifts a month should be your goal.
Okay.
So that kind of was like that. Okay. Now I have a structure I can go off of.
Sure.
And so I don't want to work 5 days a week. I only want to work 3 to 4. Obviously, I will work 5 days a week if I want to take a bunch of days off the next. So it is fun, but I have to sit. I have to sit and I have to plan every single month. And some places want different, like I do have a guy that I actually work for his company as a CRNA. He's the one that actually sets the rates. He actually talks to the facilities. I just fill in.
Gotcha.
So there's that option as well for a couple of the places I go to. And he's always ready early. So he's always got, and if I don't take the date, someone else is going to take them.
Yeah.
So that's I think the trickiest part is just sitting down and building the schedule, even though I love it because it's freedom. I get to choose when I work, when I don't work. And the only person I can be mad at for picking up a shift is me. And I love that. Like that's freedom to me. Like that just feels so free to me.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. That's great. So let's switch gears and talk about the Mindful SRNA, RRNA podcast and the coaching and the consulting. So when and how did that get started?
It's so funny because I coach on all the time of this. Like we like to information hoard, like when we're going to try to be a CRNA or even money, like we want to invest, we want to do stuff. I feel like we can gather information for days, weeks, months, years, and then do nothing, right? We just kind of sit there with all this great information. And so it was so funny. I was thinking when I graduated about 2018, about a year after I started working, everyone's always, you should like coach, you should mentor, you should do something you love to teach. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I would love to do it. For 2 years, I just researched and looked at things, and you want to make a pretty website. You want to do all like just literally doing nothing, but just trying to make things look pretty. And so, cause I was like, I want to do this. I love teaching. I actually have my whole board here of teaching video. And so then it was, oh my God, April of 2020. I was 8 months pregnant. I had intubated somebody in the middle of the night who no clue what was going on because the world was in chaos. And I ended up going home and my husband's, that's it. You're done. First of all, go upstairs and quarantine because I don't want you to get any of us sick.
Right.
And second of all, no more working. Like you are 4 weeks away from having this baby. Like you're done. And so I honestly was sitting actually in this room. I was sitting in this room, 8 months pregnant with my first baby. And my girlfriend goes, and I'm like going crazy. And she's like, why don't you let's just start your mentoring? Like, why don't you start like tutoring, like mentoring? Let's just go. And literally in 2 days that I sat up here in quarantine to make sure I wasn't sick, I just put everything together. I put calendar together in Calendly. I just picked a number and made a rate. And then I was doing presentations because I wasn't working during the pandemic. So I was doing a lot of researching and I was putting a lot of information out there for those that were on the front lines and those that were working. And that literally was how my business started. And from there, it just went.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then I went from it's funny because I had a vision of what I wanted, but I allowed my business to just go the way it needed to go. And I just saw what people I spent maybe a couple years just one-on-ones, getting to know people. What do they need? What do they want? And then I got a coach. I was like, this is super cool. And then I started, how can I take these principles and actually help people become leaders in healthcare? That's what we're doing. We're at the head of the bed,
Right.
Leaders. Like, nurses were leaders. How can I take these coaching principles and make them work for future CRNAs? And that's what I've just been building. And it's been great. It's been super fun, but it just was literally like it took me just being locked in a room to finally, and it took me like an hour. It took me like an hour to put everything together. It was ridiculous. So yeah.
That's great. So Amanda, can you break down like what are the different programs that you have? You've got like a premier roadmap, the exclusive, and then I think even an elite. So as it sits today, what are the different types of programs that you offer?
Yeah. So right now I have my roadmap program, which is essentially for nurses who are navigating the application process. So where do I apply? How do I get organized? I'm not like a finance expert, but you got to start talking about your finances and figuring out what you're going to do because you can't work. So it's deciding you want to do it. It's getting all in, it's planning that out, executing your plan, and then tweaking it. And so I have a whole program on all the strategy and all the mindset stuff on the way. When you get disappointed, when you have rejections, when you feel like things are hopeless, how can we navigate that? So and my big thing with that is the more you build up your brain and your mindset before school, the better and stronger you're going to be in school, because school is challenging. So I have that. And then I have, for my current people that are in nurse anesthesia school, I have my elite program. And that's like my elite coaching program. We meet twice a month. We do live calls. It's everything you need. Once again, I always have the strategy, but we can't just do things. We have to be very mindful, thoughtful, and intentional about things we do. Mindful, right? The whole premise of being an anesthesia provider is being mindful. We are putting people to sleep. We are becoming their nervous system, right? Breathing for them. We are doing everything for them. And so we have to apply those same things to our life. And that's what I just want to empower and build people up to morph into and become the best version of themselves they can be in really hard times. Because school was hard for me. A lot of people, I think they see me on social and they're like, oh, her life is great. She's married with kids and she works. And it's no, I get burned out. I have issues. I fight with my husband. My kids drive me nuts. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to bring humanity to the process, because I think in perfectionism and type A, I think we forget to just be human and to allow failures and mistakes and to grow from them. And that's really what I help people do as they journey to their dreams.
Yeah. And so I hear it like, forgive this, but 80% mindset, mindfulness, imposter syndrome I was joking about earlier, and just maybe 20% technical, although you have roadmaps, et cetera. But that's interesting.
Yeah. And it's so true. Like you're not gonna do the things, or you're gonna do too much or not enough, or you're gonna procrastinate, you're gonna do that if this isn't together. Like it's just gonna be like, oh, throwing spaghetti at the wall and etc. And so if we can clean up our minds a little bit and be empowered, then it makes the doing a bit easier. Like you're more effective, you're more efficient versus I'm not good enough. And then you're going to show up not good enough. You know what I mean? And it just makes it harder than it needs to be. So yeah, I love that 80-20. Yes.
And so I see it too. Like it's obviously getting into school, the interview process, maybe while you're in school, the mindset. And then I think I even saw maybe some exit things or interviews once you get out of school. But once you become a CRNA, do you work with clients then, or is that not really your market per se?
Yeah, so I've been asked a lot. I just don't have kind of the time right now. But what's really exciting is I have actually brought on a business partner, and she's going to start building up what we call is boards and beyond. And so helping people pass boards and then navigating the credentialing and the stuff there. So we're starting to build that up right now as we, yes, I love that you asked that. Cool. Exciting. Yes, that's the next step.
And then, by the way, let's just throw on a podcast too.
I know, right? I have a podcast.
Tell me, what is that? Just something you enjoy doing and just having conversations, or just another medium maybe to get your word out? What kicked that off?
Yeah, I think the last couple, I feel like your first couple years of business, you're figuring out like your message. What are you really doing? Who are you really trying to help? So I feel like I've got that nailed down. And so now my focus, I was pregnant last year. I was not really my best self most of the year, but last year and now this year, because I feel a little bit more refreshed, is yes, reaching more people. Like now I want to get this message out to more people. So I thought I have videos on YouTube. I started doing that. And then the podcast I thought was just a great way to get my message to reach more people. But also I know a lot of people don't come into my coaching program, and I always add value for everybody. I have a lot of free webinars and free clinical guides and so many free videos on YouTube and whatever. So I want things to be accessible. I want people to be able to, because I actually have a private podcast in my coaching program. And so many of my clients, my program are like, oh my God, these are life-changing podcasts that we can listen to clinical and that. And so I'm like, why don't I do this for the masses, for the people that maybe don't pay or don't come in? I just believe in giving value to everybody. And so a podcast is just a great way to bring value, bring more people into my circle. And I just, if you can't tell, I'm just a people person. So like a little social person. So so I like that.
That's great. So I'm amazed, like a lot of the issues or biggest issues that we talk about with CRNAs, and they say it's the work-life balance between high stress, high paying type of job. But can you walk me through? I'm amazed by all that you've got going on, Amanda. You've just talked about all that, the CRNA and then the coaching and podcast. What is it on average? What's a typical week look like for you?
Yes. We're recording this on a Tuesday. So Tuesday is like my day off. Like Tuesday is my sacred day. Sometimes I do work Tuesdays if I'm going on a trip or something, like I said, but Tuesday is like my day. And I choose to do whatever I want with it. I have my nice slow mornings. My 4-year-old goes off. So that's like my day to myself. And then really I'm trying to think. So I usually have a day where I either do nothing on Tuesdays, or I'll record a couple of videos and make some content or something like that. Saturdays, I usually take completely off and just enjoy my family. I don't try to touch anything. That's just completely family day. And the big thing for me is I work as a CRNA during the day. I don't usually do calls after I work. I like to come home and I turn my phone off. I do not have my phone. I do not look at it at a certain time of day. Like I just at about 6, 7 o'clock, once we do bedtime, no phone. So I'm busy, but I set so many boundaries. I don't have, oh my God, the red alerts. I don't have alerts on anything besides I think maybe phone calls and that. I don't see unread Instagram messages. I don't see my phone, big red thing. I've turned all the alerts off. I don't see anything. So that kind of helps too. And I just have to remember nothing is really urgent. So nothing. And I just really, I'm going to record this video. I have content writing days, recording time, which is a couple hours. I'll do a couple hours of calls once or twice a week. And that's really it. So I just space things out. I give myself lots of margin and white space. I have a baby. I don't sleep all the time. If I'm super tired, I'm not going to record the video. I know I was just looking at some people have these amazing technical Google things, all this great scheduler. And I like to loosely schedule and go with the flow. I think it's my thing now. And then Sundays, I will spend a couple hours doing emails, getting content together for the week. But then once again, certain time of night, I'm cooking, I'm with kids, I'm with that. So it's really about those cutoff times. Just being, if this doesn't get done, I'm not a bad mom. I'm not a bad coach. I'm not just taking that away and just allowing myself to be human within my life. And nothing is, if this video doesn't get recorded today, it doesn't get recorded. Like
Right.
not a big deal. Yeah.
And do you think a lot of that is inherent within you, or did you mention you have a coach? Did you learn that from your coach? How do you think that came to be?
Oh, totally being coached. That is not inherent.
Ah,
I'm type A,
you'd be a mess
crazy.
otherwise.
Yes, I'm like perfectionist, hard on myself, the big to-do list. And if I don't get anything done, then I'm scrambling and staying up late. But I think it's a mixture of, and this is like why I coach a lot of people, because I get where y'all are coming from. I was that person. I spent my 20s burning myself out because I had to do this and I had to be perfect and I had to have this and I da. And so I think number one, it is my coach. And number two, I think having kids. I think when and I actually, side note, was never planning on ever having kids, but God had other plans for me, which is great. Yep. But I think kids make you slow down too. They bring you back to what's important. You know what I mean? And an email and getting this on. So even today, like on social media, I did a bunch of posting yesterday. I don't feel like getting on today. And that's okay. Before it'd been like, oh, you got to get on. But so I just think it's a mix of having kids. I think it's a mix of having the second kid too and being tired and really devoting like 2024 about my peace and about enjoying life and what matters. And that has taken years to get to this place. Years.
It's always like I always use the analogy. It's like the iceberg. You see the tip of the iceberg, but when you look underneath the water, it's this huge thing of years and mistakes and crying and late nights and you name it. It's there.
Yeah. Self-compassion, I think, has changed the game because I coach so much on it. Sure. And I never ask my clients to do things that I don't do. So I think the self-compassion has just changed the game and just the humanity piece of, I'm working, I'm a mother, I don't sleep all the time. Okay. It's okay.
It's okay.
All right.
It's okay. Love it. You want to jump into some money here?
Yes, let's talk money.
As Amanda, we have our guests send in a money question, whether it's specific to them or just one they've always been curious about. And yours was, I just went from half, everything you've been explaining, half W-2, half 1099 to full 1099. I have an S Corp, which is great. Any strategies or advice you have to maximize deductions and taxes so I can reap the benefits of this? So I find it fascinating now learning that your husband's a CPA and you're asking me this question. So I think there's a couple different things. I think the biggest thing is your business profits. To answer that question, maybe not, but when you are paying FICA tax, and that is 15.3% of your earnings. Now, when you're W-2, you pay half, your employer pays half. So you always paid half and they paid half. Now, if you go off on your own and you're a sole proprietor, you're not an S Corp. That's called self-employment tax. You're paying the full 15.3% on everything you make, all of your revenue, so all of your profit.
Okay.
What happens is we mature in theory from a business standpoint, and that's when you want to transition into an S Corp, which is what you've had. So now you've got a mix of you're an independent person, you're a sole proprietor, but you also have some business structure to you. Okay. And so in your S Corp, one of the first things you have to do is you have to pay yourself a wage. Have you begun paying yourself like a salary?
Yeah. So I'm trying to I guess I take out a portion because I'm going to be doing quarterly taxes, I believe, at some point.
Yeah.
But I've been taking out a portion, and then I know you're supposed to dividend it out. This is my salary, and then
so you're supposed to have what's called a reasonable salary. Now, reasonable is in different strokes for different folks, but let's just say let's say revenue is 500,000. Let's say we pay ourselves 100,000. So that's W-2. Now we're paying that 15.3% on that 100,000. But let's say to run our business, it costs another 100,000. Now we're 100,000 out payroll, 100,000 to run our business, but our revenue was 500,000. So we have 300,000 in profit.
Okay.
Then you, in theory, take that profit through S Corp distributions or S Corp dividends, meaning you pay yourself then, but you're not paying FICA tax on that. You're not paying employment taxes on those monies. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
So as opposed to the sole proprietor where you're paying 15.3 on all of it, you're just paying, you have to pay yourself a wage, but on top of that, you can take the difference on dividends and not have to pay the FICA tax on those.
Okay.
Now, your profits on the company do flow through your tax return and they come to you on your personal tax return. So your profits, again, are taxable at the end of the day, but they're taxable at your individual income tax rate. So whatever bracket you and your husband fall into, that's the tax bracket that your business profits will fall into.
Oh,
That's lower than a corporation's tax.
okay.
So it's still called what's called a pass-through. It pass-throughs to you, the individual, and you don't have to pay corporate tax. You pay your taxes at an individual rate. And then the third big thing of this is what's known as the QBI deduction. You're familiar with that? So basically, up to a certain amount, I think it's, let's just say 450,000. The first 450,000 of profit, you get to deduct 20% right off the top, and that is not taxable to you. So you're only taxed on 80%.
Only taxed on. Okay. Nice.
So that's what's known as a QBI deduction, which came in 2018. So those are the three biggies. Now, those aren't sexy. You don't really see all of those. It's
Yeah.
You're not paying.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
There's no quote unquote, can I expense this versus that? And we get those questions all the time. And at the end of the day, those don't really move the needle that much. Those expenses, it's those deductions and not having to pay taxes is really the main part of the export.
Okay.
On the flip side, when you do get also revenue or you get too much money, you don't want to pay, you don't need all of that money, then you get what you were talking about is the retirement planning side. You're independent. You eat what you kill. The benefit of that is there are advantages for you tax favorably to put money away that the W-2 person cannot do. You've heard of probably SEP IRAs or simple IRAs. What that basically means is in a typical W-2, I could save $27,000 tax deductibly into a 401k or a 403b. You could save up to $69,000.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's through the typical 401k type of thing. There's also what's known as a cash balance plan. You could, in theory, save $275,000 tax favorably if you didn't need those monies. Wouldn't that be an amazing problem?
I wish. That'd be great.
So those are the main ones. It's just that flexibility. Once you get to a point where, you know what, we're living our life. I'm paying for things. I need to start not paying as much. My business profits are coming through and I am paying taxes on that. Can I avoid more tax? That's where the retirement comes in. The downside of that is you can't touch those monies once you put it into the retirement. You can, but there's a law off. So does that make sense?
That's so helpful. And you explained that so well. I feel like, I don't know, maybe someone has told me something similar, but that makes sense when you say it. Wow, thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you for sending that. It was a great question.
Yeah, of course.
And I love the 1099. I think your ceiling is so much higher. And yes, you have to pay for your insurance or do some of these other things, pay for your dues and whatnot. But for those who take the risk, you get the reward for going out there. And as we know for CRNAs, it's getting more and more common.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot. Like I've noticed a lot of different threads I look on, or a lot of people are wanting to make the jump and do it. And do it. It's not permanent. It doesn't have to be, but it's an opportunity. And like I said, I'm still in the feeling it out stage, but I was just talking to another CRNA yesterday and you just look different. She's cool. Since I stopped taking call and I'm like, I feel better. I just feel better. I feel free. I feel it was probably one of the hardest decisions I made, but right now I can say it's one of the best things I've done and I'm enjoying it. And like with anything, be messy. I'm doing it imperfect. I don't know everything. I don't have everything figured out, but I'm just going for it. And I know I'll learn and figure it out as I go. And that's essentially what it takes to be a CRNA. I
love it. Good for you. So I promise I'll wrap up just maybe one or two questions. I guess my first thing I'm really curious about. So Amanda, if it's 5 years from today and you and I are looking back over the last 5 years, what has happened for you professionally that makes you feel successful? Or makes you feel proud? Or what's that vision for the next 5 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, well, hopefully moving to somewhere more.
We talked about that.
I want to I want to have a little more beachy area, a little less of the four seasons. And I would say, honestly, working a couple days a week as a CRNA, like still working.
You'd always like to keep that, keep your toe in that one.
always. So
Gotcha.
I think doing a couple days a week as a CRNA, still 1099. I think I love coaching. I think continuing to coach. I would love to bring more business partners in and have like people that I coach with and that kind of understand my process and that. So I would like to see that business built and having just more people with more perspectives and that. So I think doing the coaching a couple days a week, CRNA a couple days a week, and traveling. Like I think traveling, getting more countries under my belt, going with the kids, going without the kids. I think all of that would just be awesome. Taking care of my parents, like financially taking care of them a little bit more. I would like to get them a car and do some more things for them. I hope I'm still on the trajectory of what matters, what's important, having my money, having this kind of figured out, just having a money machine working in the background.
Yep. I like that money machine. Yeah, that's good.
Having my own little everything, just this goes here and there and this and that, and just having this all figured out and really just living in the days and being fun and enjoying my life and just being able to watch my kids grow up and keep them emotionally healthy.
Yeah, I love it.
That would be a good 5 years.
Yep, I love it. And I don't know that this may go into that, but I think I do want to ask it as we talk to different people in this podcast, and what we're doing is about CRNAs and their path to success, but success means different things to different people. So I'm curious, what would your definition of success mean to you?
Yeah, so funny because you would ask me that a few years ago. It would have been being a CRNA and having the house and the cars and all the things in your 20s. You're just like, that's what, at least for me, that's what I was going for. And then you get that and it's seriously like, it's great and you're blessed, but that's really not success. I think success is, for me, is continuing to be in a career I love. I'm all about, I want to work with good people. I want to work with competent, normal surgeons that are nice, which I've been building that up. So I think that successful is working with good people who take excellent care of their patients and doing that teamwork. And I think success is having a good marriage and raising emotionally healthy, awesome kids. And I think success is just continuing to connect with my people, my future CRNAs, everybody in between, APRNs, everybody. And I think would also be doing volunteer work and mission work and continuing to do that stuff. So I think it's just success for me now is making an impact, I think, and empowering people so that they can live the lives they want.
Yes.
That's the big thing.
That's great. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Amanda, we'll have all of your links in the show notes if people want to get in touch for you. But I guess real quick, what is in your mind, what's the easiest way if somebody's interested in working with you or checking you out to learn more about you? What's the best way to get into contact?
I would say Instagram. I feel like I literally built my business on Instagram. I know it's crazy. At Amanda K CRNA, built my entire business on one platform. So I would say that's where you can see my life. You can see me at work. I answer my DMs there regularly. And so I would say that. And then from there, you'll also see I have a website as well, but if you really want to connect with me on that personal level, I think Instagram's the best place, or email me. I check email before I check Instagram. So I always tell people, if you need me, email first, social second. So I'd say email and Instagram is the best way to
Okay, great. As I mentioned, we'll have those first and foremost in the show notes. And Amanda, thank you for taking the time today to be on Money RX for CRNAs.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate it. This has been so fun.
Great. Appreciate it.
Yes, thanks.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. This podcast does not engage in rendering legal, financial, or other professional services.